Hi friends, welcome to my channel. I am Sarah Martin with The Contoured Chemist. Today's video is great for the beginner. We are going to be going over a little bit about what you need to know, the basics of 3D foundation and Seint Beauty. You just got your makeup, now what? We're gonna start here. I'm gonna tell you what you need to know for your first application, some simple things to avoid, how you can get your best results from your very first time. If you wanna check it out, please keep watching. Be sure to like and subscribe so that you know when my next video drops so you don't ever miss a tip on Seint. And as always, thank you guys for watching. All right, friends, let's go ahead and get started. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I'm Sarah Martin. I am a former organic chemist turned makeup artist with Seint. I have been an artist for 5 years now. I specialize in color matching and skincare. I am kind of a geek when it comes to ingredients and all the tips and tricks so you get the best possible application with Seint. It is unlike any other makeup out there. So there are some basic needs to know when you are getting started. I have color matched well over 10,000 women. I know I can help you love your makeup routine as much as I do. This makeup gets better every single year I use it. So let's go ahead and get into it. The very first thing, I have a clean face. I have done nothing but washed my face and done my skincare. I did not do my last step of my skincare because I want to emphasize the importance of what you put on your skin before 3D foundation is kind of crucial. And it's one of those things I didn't learn until years into troubleshooting with clients, that there's a little known class of compounds that we need to avoid when it comes to our cream makeup. Cream makeup sits on the skin differently. It's comprised very differently than traditional liquid or powder foundation. And so we have to avoid silicones. And if you don't know, silicones are what are put in, I would say, 99% of primers and a lot of lotions and sunscreens. And it is very prevalent in the beauty industry right now because it gives a really soft feeling to your skin. It doesn't necessarily like fill in things like it is marketed, but it gives that softness. And if you've ever tried a pore blurring or pore filling primer, you know what I'm talking about, that feeling it gives. Well, what that means is that our cream makeups don't sit well. They can't stick to it. It creates such a slippery surface to your skin that the makeup will just gradually wear off during the day. And within a couple of hours, you'll be writing me being like, Sarah, it looks like I have nothing on my face, like my skin is eating the makeup. That is your first sign you have something with silicones in it. So I wanna go over a little bit about some things to avoid and some great options. I would say most serums, like vitamin C serums, things you're gonna be using in the morning, most, I'm not gonna say all because I test a lot of skincare and I've found some of my favorites that actually have silicone derivatives in them. But most serums, okay, liquidy type serums are not silicone based. You'll mainly see it in creams and sunscreens, okay? So you will see other artists recommend these. I do not. Even though I love these products, I don't recommend them underneath your 3D foundation at all. And because I've had many clients that have realized this was their issue, okay? Our Seint cream, I love it. I use it every single night, but I also rinse that off in the morning. So whether you have normal skin or you're more oily and you need to actually do a cleanse, I just use micellar water or even just water, rinse off excess oils from overnight. This is fine to use every night, but I don't recommend applying this on your skin in the morning and then going in with the makeup. It has 2 types of silicones. If you are unfamiliar with what a silicone is, dimethicone is the number one you will see in almost everything. And this has cetyl dimethicone and dimethicone in it. to silicones, the more, what I've noticed, the correlation over the years, the more silicone derivatives in a product, the more issues it gives. The higher it is up on the ingredient list, the more issues it gives with your makeup wearing off. So if you see dimethicone or anything that says methicone or ends in the word cone at the end of an ingredient list, at the top, no, in an ingredient deck, the ones listed at the top are what is mostly comprised in that. And the ones at the end means there's less of that ingredient in this product. So if you see it at the top, that means it's a lot of silicone. That is mainly silicone based. If you see 2 to 3 or more ingredients with that word in it, like this product, I love using over our makeup for pore blurring. Anything that you see that is marketed as pore blurring is silicone. I guarantee it. I will stake my life on it. It is pore blurring, pore filling, pore related. It's silicone based. This is 100% every ingredient in this is silicone. You put this on under your makeup, even though it's marketed as that. For traditional foundation, you cannot do that with our cream. I have videos over on Instagram showing how I recommend using this for pores only after, okay? Our setting spray. A lot of people say this is a primer. It is also, it does also have silicone in it. It doesn't have as much. You're also not getting as much on your face when you're just spraying it, but it can also give longevity issues. So my recommendation, if you have been using the makeup a while, you're having longevity issues, put the makeup on clean, dry skin. Don't put any skincare. Don't put anything under it. Nothing. And see how your makeup wears. If it lasts all day and you were having longevity issues before, it's something you're putting on your skin before the makeup. If you're still having longevity issues with nothing on your skin before, 100% color issue. Without a doubt in my mind, you have the wrong color. You're most likely using a color too light. Go to your artist or get a rematch. That being said, I do not recommend primers with 3D foundation. You don't need one. The only time I ever recommend a primer for a client is if they have extremely oily skin. This one is in new packaging now, but this Honest Beauty matte primer is silicone free and really absorbs excess oil. I only recommend it where you're oily. This can kind of help you get through the transition phase with our makeup. If you are noticing that you're looking extra shiny or naturally just have really oily skin, you can use cream makeup with oily skin. You might just have to use a primer, something like this, but reach out to me if you're my client and we can troubleshoot what you might need to do. A lot of times you don't even need this. It's just other steps, which I'll get to in our application. But this one does help a lot of people. So this is for oily skin. Say you are very dry and you're like, Sarah, I've been using the Seint cream. I love it. I need lots of moisture in the mornings. Skip this and go for something that is also moisturizing, but that is silicone free. So my favorite is this Good Molecules, literally in the name, silicone free priming moisturizer. This gives a really nice base and extra hydration. So in the winter months, if I'm feeling a little bit drier than normal, I will use this after my serums for extra hydration before my SPF. If you're one that just has dry patches, then I'd recommend only applying this maybe just where you might have dry patches, which is common as we age as well. So this one is a great one to kind of spot treat as well. Link all the ones I'm talking about down in the drop box below in case you're needing a new moisturizer or sunscreen. So let's go to sunscreen. The last step in your skincare regimen should always be sunscreen, not moisturizer, sunscreen, okay? If you need to moisturize, you put that on after your serums, then you top it with your SPF for the greatest protection. I will talk about sunscreen and the importance of it, using it every single day until the day I die after having melanoma. So please hear me if you've not gotten a sunscreen, and one that you can wear in your skincare routine, especially if you are one that is trying to use anti-aging skincare or have dark spots like me. Any skincare you are using will be for nothing if you are not using a sunscreen every day, because the sun damages our skin more than anything else. Not to mention, skin cancer sucks. Trust me, just give yourself added protection, okay? I love testing sunscreens. So if you are like me, I will always be testing them. I have so many in my bathroom right now, and I'm always testing them with this makeup to see what works well. So follow me over on Instagram. Those are where I share all of my favorite skincare products more on a regular basis. My ride or dies for a while now have been, I do love Elta MD, still always do for any skin type. But there has been a lot of made in the SPF industry as of late. I'll be honest, the US is still behind other countries. There are new filters that are approved in places like Korea that we have not gotten them yet. And they make sunscreen so nice, like a moisturizer. You're gonna wanna wear them every day because they have great skincare included in them. They're no longer white cast and smell like SPF, like you guys know what I'm talking about. So my favorite of all of them, and I'm still testing lots, they're a little bit harder to get over here. They take longer, but my favorite is this Beauty of Joseon. This is the Relief Sun Rice Plus Probiotics. And it's so good. It's like hydrating enough that you don't need a moisturizer if you have normal skin. So I do have normal skin. After years of using this, it normalized my skin. So I typically only use this very rarely in the winter when I have dry patches. And on the daily, I reach for one of these. Okay, so the Beauty of Joseon or Glow Screen. This one will still give a very hydrated finish to the skin. It is not white cast. It goes on super beautiful and just makes your skin look hydrated, and it's moisturizing enough that you probably won't need an added moisturizer. I use this as my moisturizer, okay? I love the Glow Screen, and I've been using these for years. They recently came out with Golden Hour, which is a darker version of the original, which, oh gosh, what's this? I never can remember the name of this one because it's not on the package. So this was the original. It gives just a really illuminated glow to the skin. I love a dewy look. When we talk about finishing the makeup, I'll show you more, but this will just kind of give that iridescence to the skin. It makes your skin glow. Maybe if you don't have like skin that glows naturally with just from skincare, it'll fake it for you. It's amazing. And then this one is the new darker version. I'll be honest, these are the same formulation, which means I can mix them. I don't recommend mixing stuff otherwise because it's going to change the SPF. But these are the exact same formulation. They just have different colors. When I've exfoliated off all of my self tanner, I will use the darker one, and it gives that back to my skin without me having to use a bronzer. And then on days where my self tan is still strong, I'll just use the lighter one. And those days in the middle, which is usually day 2, I will mix them 50-50. And it gives me, I can just kind of even out my skin tone really well. This one's much more tinted. I wouldn't consider this one really tinted. It's just more of that, do you see that golden undertone? They're both beautiful. I only recommend these if you like a dewy look to your skin and pores are not something you are trying to minimize or something that are just emphasized with reflection of light. That's all. Okay, so these are just going to reflect more light, meaning it's going to make your pores more visible. Pores are something that you need to mattify in order to diminish the look of them, which is something you will do after. But I'm just saying this will emphasize. So if that's an issue for you, skip the glowy ones and you want to stick with more of a matte finish. Okay, so this one is my favorite for oily skin. Or those that like a matte look to your face. Okay, so our creams naturally will give a dewy finish, right? The only way to look matte with our makeup is to mattify your face to begin with and then mattify it when you're setting your makeup. So this one is so good by La Roche-Posay. This is the Dry Touch. It is extremely matte. So I'll be honest, I like the opposite of matte. Give me all the glow. But this one, like when it dries down, it's so matte. It takes away all shine. It works great for oily skin, okay? It's gonna kind of dry down. And that's because the second ingredient is silica, which silica is a drying agent. Now, not all La Roche-Posay sunscreens, I've tested a lot. Not all of them are silicone free. This one is, okay? So I will link the exact one below. When it comes to sunscreen, finding one that you do not mind applying every day is key. Get one that you like. If you have combination skin, as long as you are careful and making sure you're not missing any areas, you can most certainly use more than one. So say you have a very oily T-zone, you can apply something like this that will mattify where needed and apply something, say you're dry on the cheek area, apply something more hydrating on that area, okay? So customize it to work for you so that you are getting the adequate protection you need every day, so your skincare does the most good and you're getting the best possible finish and longevity and wear time from your foundation, okay? Super important. So I'm gonna start with that. Skincare always. Now, I have not applied mine yet and I had all my serums on, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'm starting to lose my tan a little. So I'm gonna show you real quick how I apply my glow screen. Hopefully I don't get it all over I shouldn't have worn white. How I apply this on the daily, okay? If you don't know, sunscreen should always be 2 finger lengths long, okay? So what I do is I'll do whoops, I missed this spot. 1 finger of, that sounds weird, the golden hour. And then, gosh, what's the other one? Whatever this one's called. Okay, 2. Then I'm just gonna mix them together. Again, this is only because they're the exact same sunscreen. Don't mix other sunscreens. It will affect the filters and the concentration and the way they work. Now that should be enough for your face and your neck. I'll be honest, I put most of it on my face because I didn't want to get my sweatshirt, since this is tinted. The golden hour is very tinted. And I try not to miss a spot. Eyelids, under eyes. Everything. Okay. Now, I'm gonna come back. This is going to soak in for, I like to wait a good 15 minutes. So this is usually, I will wake up, I will wash my face, apply my skincare and my sunscreen, and then I will go make coffee, put dry shampoo in my hair, let it set, and then that way I can give it some time to kind of soak in before I go in with my makeup. Now, if you have dry skin and you're needing to apply something like this, then your sunscreen over it, you might not have to wait that long. And if you have dry patches, you might want to use a little bit of this on those dry patches and then maybe wait a good 5 minutes and then go in with your makeup. Something you're going to have to do a little trial and error to see what works best for your skin. Everyone's skin is different, okay? So when you go in with your makeup, if there's any areas that are looking really dry right as you put them over it, that means that you need to maybe wait less time. If you have really dry, like a really dry flaky patch, those are the ones that you need to like put it on there and then go straight in with makeup. It'll give you a better application, a smoother finish. I'll be back. Okay, a couple things you can do while you wait for that to soak in. I always prime my eyes first. So if you have oily, really mature or hooded eyes that have a lot of texture that are just prone to creasing, or you have issues with your eyeshadow ever staying, no matter the eyeshadow you're using, Prepping your eyes is key. So when I washed my face, I made sure I cleaned my eyelids thoroughly. If you have excess oil from overnight on your eyelids and then you put a primer over it, it's not going to do nearly the prepping it can, because that oil is still going to seep out over time. So clean your eyelids, then go in with an eyeshadow primer. I don't feel like all eyeshadow primers are equal, so sometimes you might have to try a few. This is the closest to drugstore, it's from Amazon, that I've ever found that actually works for me. Most do not. Expensive ones do. Like Urban Decay makes amazing eyeshadow primers, but this one works exactly the same to me, half the price. Okay. Now, I also feel like I have to let that set before I go in with my makeup. So it's really great. I can put that on and wait while I'm still soaking. Next thing that I suggest always prepping before you sit down is your perfector sponge. Okay, so this is what one looks like that is dirty and dry, and then this is what one looks like when it's been prepped and it's been wrung out numerous times, and I'm letting it kind of dry down before I'm ready for my makeup. In the way I teach, this is crucial for how you're going to get the makeup to look on your skin. If you have tried the makeup before and it is sticky or tacky or transferring or making you look oily, all of those things are usually due to over application or not using your perfector. When used properly, this guy can make your makeup look like skin. It's the only way to remove excess. It is magical. Trust me, when I figured out that I wasn't using this right, it completely changed the way my makeup looked. So this is dry. What I like to do is clean it every time so I know it's bacteria free. So if you're acne prone, you know that this is not going to be creating you to break out or anything, because bacteria is truly the only way you're going to break out with these creams, because they do not penetrate your skin. So the only way is if you are trapping bacteria under the makeup against your skin. This, naturally, all sponges can harbor bacteria if they're not cleaned. So I like to use Dawn, the dish spray. Any kind of Dawn dish soap works really well. And I put soap on it when I prep it every time I'm getting ready. And so I know I'm squeezing it out enough to get out all the soap. And if you don't squeeze it out enough, then it's never gonna fully double in size and look like this. Okay, I have more detailed videos showing exactly how I squeeze out every last drop. Literally be aggressive with it. And then I like to dry it in a really absorbent towel. And then I like to sit it out here while I'm doing my makeup, or while you're letting your sunscreen soak in, whatever the case may be. That way it isn't damp when you go to use it. If it's too damp, it will pull off your coverage. If it's too dry, it will not pull off excess. There is a sweet spot. I call it perfecting your perfector. And it's a game changer. It's such a game changer. Okay, so this guy is gonna dry out while we fill our compact. So you just bought 3D foundation for the first time. You've been color matched. You get your compact. How do you fill it? What I recommend is going from order of application, darkest to lightest, highlights always. And so that way you know, without having to pop your colors out. Once they're all in here, I'll be honest, sometimes some colors, depending on how your color match, can look very similar, and you might not be able to tell the difference between all of them. Now, there are ways you can use even the packing label that comes with it. It's a giant sticker. Cut off the name, stick it up here across from where it is. You can easily label them if that is how your mind works. But if you just want to be able to go through and just do order of application, that's what I would recommend. So I'm going to show you how I apply and what order I recommend as we do it. If you're unsure about what your darkest highlights are, say you got, depending on how your color matched, you might have 2 or 3. You might not be able to look at them and tell. I mean, I feel like most people, you might be able to tell, but some of them are very similar. So go based off your color match, all right? So in my color match and the way I color match my clients, the darkest shade is always known as the color corrector. Doesn't matter. It's always, that's what I call it in your color match. So you're gonna slide this out and you're gonna pop it in your compact like so. The next darkest shade I call the main shade, and that's gonna go next. So color corrector, main, and then the lightest would be, we call it a highlight, I call it an accent brightener, whatever the case may be. You can kind of tell the difference in color here. So darkest to lightest, these three are all called highlights, meaning in Seint world, these are what we think of as similar to a foundation or a concealer. They don't work in the same way though, so please don't try to apply it like traditional foundation where you can apply your concealer first and then go into your main shade. This is always applied darkest to lightest, no matter what, okay? The number one thing with our 3D foundation is that you are matching the darkest points of your face first. If you aren't, a shade too light will wear off. So with 3D, using, let's say I accidentally use this shade all over instead. A shade too light with our makeup is what causes 99% of the issues that you can avoid, okay? It means that your makeup's gonna wear off really fast. It's gonna increase the look of texture. So your face looks beautiful and hydrated, and then all of a sudden you put on this shade and it suddenly looks like it's showing every pore. It's showing all the texture of your skin. It's making your skin look dry, flaky, anything like that, then it's usually too light, okay? A shade too light won't offer enough coverage. So if you're finding you're trying to use a whole lot of product and you're not getting the coverage you're wanting, and so it will actually cause you to over apply, even if you don't know it, to where then you're like, okay, this color is looking off. A lot of times that has to do with over application. If you're feeling sticky, tacky, again, applying too much product, and sometimes that's because the color's too light and you're trying to build up coverage because it's too light to give you coverage. It's very different, and so that's why we have to apply it in a certain way so that we avoid all of those things that come with either wrong color or wrong application method for you. Okay, so I went ahead and filled the rest of my compact and kind of changed the order a little bit. This is how I'm gonna recommend applying. So darkest highlight, color corrector. We're gonna match the darkest points of our face. We're gonna make sure that we get the coverage we want and color correct any color issues. So color issues would be redness, dark circles, hyperpigmentation, scarring, acne, all of those things that you might want extra coverage on, totally depending on your personal preference and how you filled out your color match request and what you are wanting from your makeup. In the way I color match my clients, I ask them all the details so that way I can give them the best personal match depending on what they're looking for. And so that's why this color you might not have, you might have one. It's just depending on what you requested. Okay? And then your main highlight shade. So this is the one that we kind of apply everywhere. It's kind of like you think of like a base foundation. This is what's gonna keep you matching your neck and build up your coverage, even out your skin tone, all of those things. Okay, then I went ahead and put my contour. So with 3D foundation, we're talking 3D because we don't want an all over one color flat foundation. We are going to add back in dimension in our face where we naturally have it. So if you kind of tell when I move the natural shadow of my face, I'm gonna add my contour in those areas so it pops my cheekbones, frames out my forehead and my face. Pretty much contour just brings attention to your eyes. You are adding in that bone structure so that we look like ourselves, just a little bit more sculpted, a little bit more natural. Since we have natural shadows when we put a foundation over it, it tends to just take away all that dimension in our face, makes us look flat and like one color, when obviously our skin is not one color. So contour is a game changer. Our contour gives coverage as well, but I'm gonna show you how I apply it in order to get even more coverage in those areas if you have concerns like I do. Okay, and then that accent brightener, this is what people tend to brighten with, like a concealer. So under their eyes, center of the face, when you've seen those methods of like the big triangle, that is the accent brightener, but we're gonna use it strategically just to kind of highlight parts of our face. You might have to use it to kind of keep yourself matching depending on how you were matched and your general tones as well. Okay, then we have a lip and a cheek color. So this is blush, lip color. It's dual purpose. We have so many different kinds and colors. They're super fun to mix and match. I'm gonna keep it simple, just show you one today. I'm gonna show you where to apply that. And then last but not least, our illuminator. So with Seint, our illuminator is what you would call highlighter in traditional makeup. So that's what gives a little bit of glow to our cheekbones or wherever you want to add that light. Adds a little luminosity to your skin as well. Makes you look younger. Okay, and then I went ahead and put a setting powder and Demi correctors on the back. Okay, so if you were matched to both 3D foundation and Demi correctors, it can be a little overwhelming to start with both. I would say I typically recommend my clients start with 3D foundation, then they can add in Demi if 3D is not giving them enough coverage in any points of their face, instead of using Demi all over, which can be harder to learn when you're beginning. So I'm gonna kind of show you how I would just typically use that a little bit after 3D foundation. It's very important to note you cannot apply Demi correctors under 3D foundation. This is completely different than what I call a color corrector with 3D. Whereas a color corrector with 3D foundation has to be applied first. A Demi corrector, if you apply it first and then you apply 3D foundation over it, it will literally move all of your product. It will not stay. It will not cover anymore. Demi is a very precise method of application. It's a pinpoint application. 3D is not. 3D is a full face application. Demi is the size of a sesame seed at a time is what you're applying. So if that tells you anything, if you apply something in this tiny little point and then you try to brush on a cream over it, it's kind of common sense. It's going to move. It's not going to stay there and you're going to be left with no coverage. The magic of Demi by itself is that it will not show texture when you're using it alone. So if you just skip your under eye with 3D foundation and use Demi there, you will have a lot less texture. But there are some tips and tricks on using them together, and just know, don't ever apply Demi under 3D foundation. You're gonna lose all the magic that comes with it. You're gonna think this doesn't give any added coverage, and that's because you're moving it when you're applying 3D, okay? So we have our compact full. Now brushes. So depending on how you're matched, depending on the coverage you want, will determine what brushes. Now I typically recommend 2 brushes for all of my new clients to begin with, because they are the 2 brushes that lead to the least amount of troubleshooting for newbies, okay? A lot of our brushes either pick up a lot of product or there are certain tricks to really knowing how to use them right. I do have very detailed videos on here about how to use each brush for your full face or how to use each brush in multiple ways. But for the most part, these 2 will give you the best possible first time application, in my opinion. This is the blush and bronzer brush, and this is the detailed brush. So this is contour, this is detail work, blush, bronzer. But I use this for highlight. It is a game changer for mature skin like me, or if you are using a color corrector so that you are not using too much. So I recommend grabbing your 2 brushes to start with, see, I'm already all absorbed because I talk so much, all absorbed, and I've got my foundation and I'm ready for my first application. And my perfector is all prepped, okay? This is all I need. We are good to go. Let's talk how to begin. First thing you gotta do is you gotta decide what kind of coverage you're wanting. There are a lot of different applications with this makeup. I will not lie. There are many methods. You might have been attracted to this makeup because you saw the viral method where everyone dots it all over their face and blends it in and it looks perfect. okay? What you might not see is them touching that up, or them with years of experience of knowing exactly how much and how many dots to apply on their face. And for a first-time user, that is not the easiest method. It might look very easy, but it's actually extremely deceiving. And the reason is because our creams are so pigmented. You need so very little, and the number one issue is people apply too much when they start. I did, everyone I know did, okay? And that's fine. You will learn with every application, it'll get easier, and you will figure out, okay, I don't need to tap in as much. But when you're going in with your finger and swiping in and then swiping on the face, usually that's gonna do is give you enough product for your full face in one swipe. I kid you not, you need so little product. And so in order to kind of learn how much, it is a million times easier to build as you go and blend as you go. Because putting dots all over your face and then trying to blend that out, there's a certain method of blending, a certain order of blending so it doesn't muddy up your colors. A lot of people come to me and are like, it don't look like I have very much coverage. And typically that's because they need color correctors. You can't use a color corrector with that method and build up coverage or layer in any way. That is a one layer of makeup, yes, but it also is harder to keep definition and dimension in certain areas of your face as a beginner and not blur them all together to where it looks like you don't have any contour on, which is a big issue for a lot of new clients with this makeup. And the number one thing I hear is that it's just not giving enough coverage. And so our creams actually give an amazing amount of coverage with very little product, but it's all in color choice and application method. And so this two brushes, I would say, are your best bet for this type of application so that you can easily adjust natural to full coverage depending on the day and depending on what you want that day. Whereas the dot method will give you more of a natural look. You're going to be blending it out more. You're not going to be building up anywhere. Okay, so let's go over how I recommend for the beginner to start. So if you're matched to a color corrector, which if you want medium to full coverage and you get matched by me, 9 times out of 10, you will be given a color corrector. It is by far easier to be able to adjust your coverage and to be able to adjust as you might get lighter or darker in the changing seasons, which I always take into account when I'm matching. So I do recommend using a brush to apply, and that is so you can control the amount you're applying. It's very simple in the fact that just take your blush brush, do not swipe into creams ever. You do that, you're golden. We don't ever swipe. You don't need to swipe. That picks up so much product. Again, you'll have enough for your full face. Also, swiping on the skin, no need. It just leads to streaking, less coverage. We always want to tap. We tap, we pounce, we press. Cream makeup is very different. You can build it up very easily and it has very buildable coverage. But you apply too much and I promise you won't like it. So we're just gonna go in to our color corrector and I am just going to tap one time. It doesn't look like much at all. I don't even know if you can see how very little is on that brush, okay? And then I'm going to hit the darkest points of my face first. And if I color matched you, I marked it on your face in your color match. So on me personally, I would mark these areas of my face, okay? I would put 2 orange lines right here and put orange right here on the tip of my chin where it's the most red. I would go all the way down my nose and all the way around the sides. Since I have broken capillaries, that is the darkest part of my face. I would say right here in this inner corner of my eyes where I've got the most blue and purple. And then I would put 2 lines right here to hit that darkest part of my forehead. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tap in and I'm going to buff on a very small amount, okay? And I have very reactive skin, so you'll see, like I touch my face, it'll get darker. But I know it doesn't take much. I'm matching the darkest points of my face. and it is also helping me color correct. I have rosacea here, hyperpigmentation, obviously. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna buff on a thin layer on those points. You can probably tell that didn't even change my face much, okay? When it comes to color correctors, you don't need to put so much on that you suddenly can't see any hyperpigmentation or redness or whatever anymore. It's just blurring those areas. It is taking down the contrast from your darkest points on your face to the lightest points of your face, and we are slowly building up that coverage, okay? We are matching the darkest points so that when we put that color over it, we still get good longevity, okay? Because if I was to go in straight with this color only, my makeup would wear off in certain parts of my face that are dark. Okay, so this is my favorite brush for mature skin. It's very soft. We can just lightly buff it on with very little pressure. Now, I love the detail brush because I can then go in with this small end back into my color corrector, and I can just, again, lightly tap, and then I can hit those tiny areas of my face that this brush cannot reach. Okay, so first I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna do my eyelids first, because if you can tell, my entire eyelids are very purple. So I'm just gonna run that over and it evens it out with very little. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and hit the darkest corner. And again, I'm still using this brush and kind of buffing it in, so I'm not like just depositing too much product in one spot. I'm trying to get it a thin layer. With this makeup, if you're trying to build up coverage, you press. If you're trying to kind of get a really thin layer and just match the darkest point, you wanna buff, okay? So in here, now, under eyes can move a lot, so sometimes we have to be a little bit gentler and kind of tap just enough to kind of match the darkest points. And you see how that evened out my under eye area. I'm not using a whole lot of pressure. If I was, you'd see my entire under eye moving, okay? So I'm just using the end of the brush, very little product, okay? So I have a base under my eyes only. You see that? It's not completely covered. I can still see some purple. I can still see some hyperpigmentation, but I've got that base going now. Okay, so my nose is still darker. Sometimes this brush does not get in all the areas of my nose well, so I will go in with the detail brush there as well. Noses typically get a lot more sun, so they typically are darker or have more redness on a lot of people. Okay, so now I'm going to the pressing phase. I'm pressing on more where I have a lot of dark spots on my nose. Okay, and this is, you can tell, building up coverage, and so now I have a lot more coverage on my nose. Okay, and then I'm gonna hit this dark area of hyperpigmentation. So I'm pressing it. I'm not pressing on so much that it's completely disappearing. I'm just building up coverage a little bit more on those spots of hyperpigmentation. Got some here. Again, You don't see them disappear, but they do lighten and even out considerably. And then I got some melasma here. Okay, now if any of your face still like screams like red stop sign, you can press on more. Obviously, everyone's skin has different concerns. And the more you apply this makeup, the more you will realize how much you need to apply at every step. There you go. That is my color correction. Now I can go in with my main shade and even it out even more. So this is going to tone down the warmth, okay? If I was to apply that shade heavy, it would pull way darker than my neck. It is not my color, but it has the undertones that color correct, whereas my main shade does not. This shade tends to wash me out slightly, and it's the combination of those shades that provides my perfect color. So when you're matched with 3D foundation, it's not necessarily going to be one color that is your perfect match. We don't have 100 shades. It is a combination of shades that will allow you to create the perfect match, the perfect coverage, perfect for you, depending on the day. Because our skin does change daily. And that's something I realized after using these creams for years, how much you can easily adjust, how much you apply of every shade, depending on how your skin has changed that day. It's amazing to have that kind of customizable coverage and control with your makeup. So now we're gonna go in with the main shade, same thing. Okay, I kind of just gently tap into this one, okay? And then I just press it on. So you'll notice I didn't apply a whole lot of color corrector down here. I kind of hit a couple spots, but I'm always going to take my main shade and I'm gonna tap it on all over to build up coverage, to even out my skin tone, because I have a lot of redness and hyperpigmentation through here. And it's building up that coverage where I'm going to be applying that contour. Can you tell the difference? So I'm tapping so that I'm not moving any of the color I just placed. Because if you start buffing this on, all of that color corrector will just mix in and will give you less coverage. Okay, same thing. I'm just going to go in with the detail end, just to small areas if I need it. Every highlight shade you press on will just build up coverage. If you go in with a shade too light to any area and you just keep putting a lighter shade, and have to keep putting more on that area to get coverage, that's what leads to it looking cakey, okay? Color correction enables you to use less of each one of these as opposed to a lot of this one to give you less coverage than both of them would. Does that make sense? So if you're using a shade too light and having to apply a lot of it, that's when you get cakey, creasing, sticky, tacky, all of the things that we're trying to avoid, which color correction can solve, okay? There you go. Now my skin is pretty evened out and I can go in with contour to add my dimension back. Okay, so I still have some dimension. It didn't take all of it away. I didn't apply so much that it's like all of it's gone. But now I'm just going to emphasize it a little bit with my contour shade. Now, I personally have to use the coolest contour shade at my level because I have redness, okay? So if I was to apply my contour directly to this area without my highlights first, my contour is It gets pulled very warm, so very orange red. It also makes my hyperpigmentation stand out more, and that makes it look very patchy. It doesn't blend out as well on me. So the way I mitigate all of that is by color correcting, then using my mane. Then I can go in with my contour. It doesn't pull as warm, and it doesn't emphasize my dark spots and my rosacea. So I'm gonna go in with my detail brush. This brush is a game changer if you want a defined contour. Now, our highlights, you can tap in pretty gently. They're not super creamy. They're more like a tacky consistency. Our contours are more of a drier consistency, and they're supposed to be that way so that they stay put where you put them. They do blend out super easily still, and so one of the biggest issues is people just blend too much. So I'm going to show you how I recommend applying it if you need extra coverage in that area and aren't wanting to move your color corrector. So I tap it on with a little bit more pressure because these are very dry. Make sure I have enough on my brush, and I put that side down right where the hollow of my cheek would be. Okay, so I'm gonna go from about the top of my ear. You can roll something to find your under your cheekbone if you don't know where it is. It's about from the top of your ear to the corner of your mouth. That is the imaginary line you want to go under. Okay, you want to stop back here, start back here, the back of your ear. Wherever you touch your face, it's going to put the most color there, obviously, right? So we want the most shadow there. And all I'm doing is going to tap it as I go towards that corner of my mouth. And right when I get about the side of my eye, I'm going to stop. Okay, it'll naturally blend in slightly, but we don't want to get it in here. Okay, smile lines, shadows, mustaches, we don't want to emphasize any of that. We're just going to tap. Okay, and I'm just going to slowly tap along that line. Okay, and now I'm going to start adding more pressure. I'm going to start using my brush because this brush is pretty dense, and I'm going to use it to really press that in and start blurring that top line. Okay, and once I feel like it's in there and I just need to blur it some more, then I'm gonna start pressing upwards, and I'm gonna pull my brush up as I'm tapping with pressure, and it is going to blur the top part of my line, but it's gonna keep this more defined because that is how I like my contour. If you want that part a little bit more diffused, you can go back in with the brush you used your highlight and just kind of tap along the line. Or when we get to the perfector step, this will also blur that out for you. If you have any areas that look patchy, you can kind of flick, but that's about as much as I do. And then here, I always want to make sure I don't have like a dead stop. So that is where I will tap to make sure that is blurred out really well. Okay, now I'm just going to repeat on the other side. Foreheads are a lot easier. I tend to just go straight in with my brush. I have a big forehead though, so I can use the whole end of my brush. If you have a smaller forehead, you won't need as much. Especially when my hair's like this, I gotta use a lot more. So I'm just gonna tap it along my hairline. Okay, as we age, we get a little narrow here, so you don't need to go down to your temples. Just frame out your forehead. The lower down on your forehead you go, the more it will make your forehead look shorter. The more out you go here, the more it will narrow your forehead. Okay, just depends on what you want to do or how your face is shaped. So the one area I pull is my forehead and my jawline. I did not color correct those areas. You'll see I didn't even put highlight up here. I just have it right here because I don't need extra coverage there. I don't have a lot of dark spots or redness at the top of my hairline. I just have redness right here. And so that part I highlight, this part I contour, and you'll see I can pull and it's not gonna move any of that coverage. Same thing with my jawline. We're gonna go up under the jaw, back here at the ear, and down under that. And since I didn't apply any highlight on my neck, I can pull that down to make sure I don't have any harsh lines, to keep me matching this guy's jowls or double chins, whatever you'd like. Okay, but that I can pull. I'm gonna just do the simplest nose contour known to man, which means take your finger, run it in your contour, make sure you got enough on your finger, rub your two fingers together, okay? And then right where your nose bone starts going downward, that is the part of your nose you want to make two little lines that are parallel to each other. Okay, you can go up to your brows, or you can stop right here if you want your nose to look a little shorter. To make the end look shorter, you gotta darken the nose. That is pretty much the easiest contour ever. The closer together you get those two lines, the thinner your nose will appear, okay? And you can even take a little bit under your lower lip here if you wanna make that look bigger. Easy peasy. Okay, once I contoured, now I like to brighten, especially if you nose contour, because brightener is what is going to make this really pop. So I'm gonna use the small end of my detail brush, and again, tap. I think less is more when it comes to the brightener. The brightener is what can cause the most, it can aid you the most. It can actually make your skin texture show up the most. The lighter you go with our makeup, the more those things are kind of emphasized. And so in order to avoid that, I'm just gonna hit just that dark point right there. I'm gonna kind of go over right here on top of this hyperpigmentation, just because it's gonna build up my coverage slightly right there. I'm not going all the way up to my lash line. I am going on the side of my nose because can you tell the side of my nose is really dark still, and that's gonna make that contour line pop on my nose contour, okay? But what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna go all the way over here, all the way down here. I don't wanna emphasize this texture that most people have here, so we avoid that part of our nose altogether. And I'm pressing it on so I'm not moving the coverage. Okay, and then if you really want that pop under your eyes and you have mature skin, don't go all the way up here, but just brighten right here next to the nose, and that will really pop it. Same thing goes with out here. A lot of people pull this up. I have a lot of texture right there. That is not something I want to emphasize. So it's like, just smile real big. Anywhere you have texture, avoid with your accent brightener. That is the number one way to avoid increase of texture or having it look chalky or cakey or anything like that, okay? Center of the chin, you can avoid this area if you get a lot of texture between your brows. I like to go just right down these contour stripes with my accent brightener. Then just kind of feather it right here with very little product. You can make your Cupid's bow pop. Okay, now if your neck is still lighter than your face, this is where I want you to pick up the blush brush again, tap into your brightener, and I want you to press it along your jawline. Okay, it's gonna tone down that area and really make your contour pop, and also bring in those lighter tones in your neck. All right, friends, it's finally time for the magical step. So this does not look like skin right now, right? It looks like makeup, in my opinion, but the perfector is magical. This is the only way to get off all this excess so that you don't feel sticky, you don't feel tacky. You can get it to looking like skin again if that is what you want. So mine's pretty dry by now because I've talked too much. So just tap. Okay, we don't sweep, we don't pull. We're just gonna bounce this anywhere we wanna blur. Okay, so along contour lines, anywhere you layered shades. So in my case, that's pretty much everywhere. I don't recommend this method without the perfector because this is gonna make your coverage look more like skin and less like makeup. Okay, anywhere it tends to collect. Okay, constantly move your perfector around as you're using it to get a new spot. And then I really concentrate under the eyes where I used more shades. Anywhere you're prone to creasing. So smile lines, if you have deep smile lines like I do. Here is a texture area for a lot of people. And under the eyes, under the eyes, under the eyes. I can't stress enough. If you have dark circles and layered 3 shades like I did, it is a game changer when you can figure out how to prep this so that you're left with coverage, your under eyes are even, you've covered all that and you're not looking older, right? Or creasing. Okay, so once I have got it to the point where I'm happy, no creasing, I always tap out one more time to make sure. Then I'm gonna go ahead and flip over to the other side and I'm going to set that right now because as I smile, talk, blink, I'm going to crease if I don't immediately set it. So our vanilla dust, I'm going to press in and I'm going to tap it on so that I don't miss any area of my under eye, like so. Can you see how much that brightened and blurred out my under eye? Okay, I'm gonna come back to setting when I'm done with my full face, but I went ahead and just did that part so that I didn't have any creasing. Even my eyelids will crease if I don't set them right away. Okay, we've got our coverage. Time for the fun part, lip and cheek. My favorite part about the makeup, for sure. So let's see, this is La Cienega. Now we just placed all of that. We have this beautiful canvas. I like to wait until after the perfector step because this will pull off excess of everything. And I can't tell you how many times people are like, well, then my blush goes away, and it's because they're perfecting after their blush. If you apply your blush in a way to where you are applying exactly the amount you want and blending at the same time without taking your finger and dabbing in and then dabbing it here and trying to blend it out, you just placed all of that color corrector. Why would you want to move it at this point? Blush is so easy to apply. You don't need to perfect afterwards unless you just want to kind of blur an edge. So this is what I'm talking about. Apply all highlights, contour, then perfect, then apply your blush. That way you can tap in. Okay, you want to go about 2 finger widths away from your nose, right here, okay, and then along the upper part of the contour line. So we got contour and then blush. I'm just tapping. I'm gently tapping, and I can build up that color until it's the way I like it. I'm not having to worry about removing excess with the perfector. I can just press it on. If I want more, I can tap in, and I can slowly build that up till it's exactly how I like it. So easy. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just use the multitasker and my contour shade. Give a quick line to the lips. Then you can just use your finger. Or you can use the same brush to to apply it heavier. And use the same color on your lips. It's my favorite color of all time. La Cienega, I'm obsessed with this color. I wish we had more with the shimmer. Give me all the glow. I love it. Now that we have our lip and cheek on, last but not least, the illuminator. This is what's going to give even more glow, which you might not be able to tell after I used a glowy lip and cheek, but like I said, give me all the glow. I like to use the perfector. I find if I apply with my finger, I get fingerprints, or I have people saying they can't see it very well. The perfector and swiping in generously, this is one thing I swipe into, guys, the only thing. Then I can just tap it. And again, I'm strategic with everything. Press it exactly where I want. That way I have no weird fingerprint lines, nothing. And I got a nice contour, blush, illuminator, avoiding the creases from my eyes. You can apply it under your brows, inside corners. This is Angel, Cupid's bow. There you go. So now we got illuminator on. That is all 3D foundation. So technically we are done with 3D and we would just set it. Now, if you are also using Demi, now would be the time you would use your corrector for additional coverage. So what I do is then I assess my face, like this spot right here. He's a beast today. Again, changes depending on the day. Some day 3D completely, it's not there. Some days it's there. So I'm gonna go in with my 03 and my spot brush, pick up the smallest amount of product you can possibly imagine, because Demi is very precise. And you don't need much. Magical. So if I had a blemish, this would be the point where I would then go over my blemishes. Now, if you like to use Demi for under eyes, you can completely just not apply any 3D there. I usually kind of go up to this point where my orbital bone is, and then I will apply 3D all over and then Demi last. Doing Demi last enables you to get the most magic from your Demi. These creams are seriously magical, but it depends on how you're using them. And they can lead to you like trying to over filter all the things if you're trying to use those first. So I find if I do my full face and then just do my under eyes last, I am not over correcting my under eyes to making them look very unnatural. It can be easy to do that when you're first learning Demi. So if you're trying to learn both at the same time, I would say do Demi or do 3D a few times, get your feet wet, get your hands on, like, get a good grasp on how much 3D to apply. And then you can try Demi with this method and then just going in, say where you want a little bit more coverage, and realize that this is very much a strategic type of application. You don't need much, but it can really give you additional coverage on areas that might maybe not fully cover with 3D. Or what I like it best on is areas of texture. So under the eyes, a lot of times, once you've Demied, if you wanted to Demi, let's go over setting. So how you set your makeup. Now, you do not have to set Demi per se if that is all you're using. 3D foundation, it depends on your skin type, depends on the finish you want. So for me, obviously you guys probably know by now, I like a dewy look. So what I do is I will set the areas that I am prone to creasing, and then I will use a setting spray in order to create a dewy look. Our setting spray, where is it? Is a dewy finish. If you have oily skin, you might find that you need more of a mattifying setting spray, or you might need a loose powder instead of our vanilla dust. So our vanilla dust is very finely milled. It is my favorite for around the eyes because it does not increase the look of texture. It really doesn't age my eyes, but it is not the most oil absorbing powder. So if you are getting oily throughout the day, you might need something like even using our blotting papers through the day and then just touching up with the vanilla dust, and right after application using something like a loose powder like Laura Mercier is really good. There's a lot of great ones out there. Just recommend getting translucent. But how you finish is dependent upon what your skin type is and the look you want. If you want a dewy look, use your setting spray last. If you want a matte look, use your powder last. If you are oily, powder last, most definitely. And if you are going through the transition period, which what that means is that your skin is probably used to a liquid foundation or a powder foundation, or maybe no foundation at all, unless you were using a cream before, which I still feel like no creams are exactly like this. You most likely are gonna go through this transition phase, which is because our creams are occlusive. What that means is that they're gonna sit on top of the skin and they're gonna reduce the amount of transepidermal water loss your skin has during the day, which is a fancy way of saying how much water naturally comes out of our skin. Traditional liquids and powders actually dry out your skin. They actually pull water out of your skin. So if your skin is used to that, your skin's gonna be like, oh my gosh, look at all this moisture. And it's gonna usually make you feel a little bit tackier than normal, a little bit shinier than normal. And depending on your skin type, it could take 2 to 4 weeks when your skin kind of balancing out, realizing, okay, this is awesome. I love the extra moisture. It's gonna give you more glow. It's gonna hydrate your skin, but it will take a little bit of time to balance. Your skin will be more hydrated after wearing this makeup for a while. It improved my skin greatly and it helped balance my skin after years of combination skin. But that transition phase can be a little tricky. So I usually recommend the setting spray or whatever your favorite setting spray might be after you've applied all of your creams, and then powdering last. If you're oily, stick with a loose powder. And you might need that for however many weeks. And then you might notice, okay, I don't really need a powder anymore, or I don't need a setting spray anymore. Or you might be able to reverse that order and powder and then spray and then kind of get more of that dewy look. Of course, depending on what you want and the look you're going for. So I'm gonna go ahead and powder. What I do on the daily is I just powder under my eyes, which I already did. And then I usually hit tip of my nose, between my brows, sometimes right here where pores are a little bit more visible, smile lines, and chin, okay? And that's all I do. I like to leave the rest of my skin nice and glowy. On days with maybe more full coverage, or I want like my makeup to just look perfect all night, I might use a loose powder and then set it. On the daily, I just powder a little bit and I don't even use this, and I feel like I can still my skin will still look dewy all day because this naturally gives a dewy finish. But if, like I said before, if pores are a major issue for you, using something like this will completely mattify that area. Like, I don't even want to do it because it's not a look I like, I'll be honest. Powders are your friend. Powders are gonna take away that texture of your skin. I like it, I feel like it's youthful, personal preference, but wherever you are seeing pores show up more, use a powder and it will kind of take away that light reflection. Now, if you feel like you're applying your highlight and those areas of your face are just way emphasized, way more than they do before you put on any makeup, your color's wrong. You most definitely are using a color too light. Like I said before, if you're not getting good longevity, increase of texture, chalky, cakey, all of those things, 99% of the issues with this makeup are applying too much or a color too light. And a lot of times a color too light is causing you to apply too much. So it all goes back to that color match. Number one most important thing with this makeup is making sure you're having the right colors. So one thing I didn't cover is bronzer. We have mini bronzers. I didn't feel like I needed it. I'm pretty warm without it, using my glow screen, but you can apply bronzer at any point in the process. But what I do is I tap it on. So I usually tap, 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 pull it down my neck. Remember, bronzer is just to add warmth. If you don't need it, you don't have to. If your neck is naturally lighter, it's really easy to just warm it up slightly. And it keeps your application a lot easier when it comes to your 3D. All right, I just did my brows and my eyes because I'm obsessed. Our eyeshadows are incredible, couple colors, and we're done. And there you go. It's a little bit about 3D foundation and Demi Colour from Seint Beauty. Hopefully that helped you with how to get started, your first application, so you can avoid a lot of issues I hear about on a daily basis from your very first time and you're ready to get started. If you haven't been color matched yet, I'd be more than happy to help you out. My color match request is always in the drop box below the video. So if you look down the caption, there is a little arrow. You can click that and it will open up. I always put every color I used. I will link everything I talked about, and my color match request is also on there where you can click on that and tell me how you like to wear your makeup. So do you have any concerns? Do you like a natural look? Do you want full coverage? Do you want to just change it depending on the day? All of that, you can tell me every detail, send me your selfies, and I will get back to you with your custom color match, all the details. I give more than enough information. If you couldn't tell, I am a little type A and I love to give all the deets. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys so much for being here. I will see you next week. Love you. Bye.